All right now we're joined by our very special guest who's joined us each and every week thanks to Bank of Fayetteville right here in downtown Fayetteville. Since it is baseball season, Arkansas got a nice little 4-game series victory over James Madison. They're going to be heading down to Arlington, and to talk more about it, let's welcome in former Razorback Tyler Spoon. What's up, Tyler? How are you?
What's up, John? I'm good, man. Good to be back.
It's good to have you back, especially talking about a series win, which I know it's interesting, like how it's a 4-game one, but through the elements. I know they dropped that one game on Sunday, but I mean, hey, you got to still be happy no matter what, getting a series win, especially the opening series win, no matter what it is.
Yeah, that opening weekend, you find a way, win the series, go to the next weekend. You know, you're just playing all the different guys, trying to figure out who can play, who can't. You know, it's cold, it's miserable. So go 3-1, you're happy. So.
Yeah. So what did you? We'll just start with the generics. What takeaway? I mean, you get 4 games. I know it's a long season, a lot of games. Got this big one coming up this weekend, but just from the 4 games you were able to check out and see, just what was probably your biggest takeaway from that?
Really like the pitching staff and the bullpen as a whole. You know, just the most on-brand thing ever that, you know, our ace goes hit by pitch, walk, and then home run. It's just like that's probably not going to happen again the entire year, just how it goes, always first game of the year. But I thought the pitching staff, bullpen as a whole was really good, really solid. You know, they're throwing a lot of young guys out there. Again, the first weekend, you're just trying to figure out who can do it, who can't, who can throw strikes, who can handle the pressure, all that good stuff. So, but also, you know, the bats are good. The pieces are there. It obviously wasn't an offensive explosion this weekend, but I think just from what I saw, obviously you still don't have Stovall and just Mr. Consistent in the lineup and having a guy like that, but you got, you know, Hudson White was unbelievable. Diggs, you know, really good. I think the lineup as a whole is going to be really good. We just got to figure out the lineup and the pieces first. So I liked what I saw, long story short.
Yeah, and with the Hagen-Smith thing, we were talking before we started the interview just how as soon as that happened, I knew that people were just fans, just why? Of all the players, the guy that you were going to count on the most and being your ace this year gives up that inning. I think he ended up having 46 pitches, but taken out in the first inning. Just, you know, you've been around a lot of great pitchers. Any concerns whatsoever? Like, should Razorback fans be concerned at all, considering Hagen, an experienced ace, had that type of outing in his first game?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just a freak deal where Hagen probably still can't feel his fingers because of how cold it was, and he's trying to throw. I mean, trying to grip a baseball and throw when it's that cold is so hard. I mean, it hurts. So he's trying to throw. He's trying to, you know, just guide the ball over the plate and, you know, hit the first batter, walk the second one, and then you get the wind howling out to center field, and a guy hits a fly ball that's a routine F8, and then next thing you know, it's over the fence. It's just like, what do you do? You know, I feel like that's the most Arkansas way to start a season too. You know, so, but yeah, it's there's no reason to be worried. He's fine.
Yeah. So for a mentality wise, because listen, I mean, you have a game like that, and he's going to have an opportunity this weekend, which I know we'll talk about Arlington, but just for the mindset and toughness, because he is a tough kid, bouncing back, just how do you feel like he will bounce back, and how will how will Dave Van Horn, Matt Hobbs, how will they approach him in that to just say, you know, was it something that they don't even talk to him, hey, don't worry about it, or is there some sort of maybe conversation that it gets had to settle him down a little bit? Yeah,
well, it depends on the pitcher too. You know, Hagen seems like a guy that's probably just going to make him mad, you know, and so it's going to be like, sometimes it's good that happens early on. You kind of, it happens, you know, then you just got to tell yourself, hey, it's time to dial in. Let's figure this out. So Hagen's a guy that's probably going to come out, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 5 innings, 1 hit, you know, 7 strikeouts kind of deal this next outing. So he'll probably be on another pitch count. So, you know, if he's thrown 65 pitches, 70 pitches, and he's cruising, don't be surprised if he's pulled. You know, that's just first few weekends is all about just making sure they're, you know, getting out there, not trying to extend them too much. You got to have them for SEC play. So, I just think he's a guy that's going to bounce back and probably just lock it in even more.
You mentioned the weather. We talked about how cold it was, and I know that it's never ideal and it's not baseball weather, but people may not understand. It's cold for fans to be out there, but it's just as cold for players. So how does that change your game, whether you're a pitcher or a hitter or fielding, whatever? How does that change it when it's the winds and the cold and the type of weather that they were having to play in this past weekend?
Yeah, it's miserable. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's the worst time of the year to play baseball, and you know, you just grind through it. You find a way, hand warmers in your pockets. You just can't feel your fingers most of the time. And, you know, like I said, trying to grip a baseball, let alone being a pitcher and throwing it every play, it's hard. So You just grin and bear it. You fight through it. The ball's not coming off the bat as well. It's just as bad as it is probably sitting in the stands and how cold you probably think it is on the field. It's probably exactly what you think, but probably worse. And baseball, you just got to be moving around constantly and in between pitches. You can't sit still. It's terrible. So you just, can't wait for a weekend like this where you're indoors and playing in a nice little, controlled environment. So that'll be a good treat for them after this first weekend.
Well, also as players, it seems like you kind of go about it different ways. I think it was Aloy that was out there. He had like a full-on hoodie, it seemed like. But then you got other guys that, are wearing the same thing they would if it was 90 degrees outside. So I guess every player's different as far as how they have to treat it to where, it's about constriction, it's about their movement, it's about also staying warm too. But every player seems they're different.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I couldn't, like the thermals we had and the long sleeves just were uncomfortable and kind of tight on me. So I couldn't swing and feel comfortable swinging in them. So I had to wear my normal stuff, and it was just cold. But you have a jacket in between innings. You just you hope your pitcher has a quick inning and you get back in there. But yeah, it's all about comfort. And, some guys are like, well, I'd rather be warm than feel good hitting and take my 1 for 4 as opposed to 3 for 4 and just stay warm. Probably not, but that's, you just try to do whatever you can to stay warm. Long story short, it's a grind. There's no way around it.
Speaking with Tyler Spoon, former Razorback, thanks to Bank of Fayetteville here in downtown Fayetteville. And Tyler, another pitcher I wanted to get to before we get into the lineup itself, Will McIntyre, who we had on this show, and he's an experienced guy, right-hander. We've seen what he's been able to do, longevity. But for him to step into that situation when, Hagan had a struggle, come in and settle in and do a great job and then come back in later into the series and everything, I'm not trying to put too much pressure on him, but he looks so much more improved, and he looks like a guy that they're going to count on a lot. And he might be down to that calming, easy presence where, in a jam like that, bring in this guy because he'll be able to get you out of it. I was just really impressed by him, at least in this first weekend, and coming out and handling a pretty tough situation to walk into.
Yeah, he does a really good job of, being the savvy vet, just having the experience. And, I don't think he would, care if I said this. He just doesn't throw 96, 97 like everybody else. It's the 88, the cutter at 85 kind of deal. And, but he acts, his mentality is, you would think he throws 97, 98, just with how he pitches and how tough he is on the mound. He's not afraid to just come right at you. He's going to throw strikes. He's just a bulldog. And, the cutter is such a tough pitch to hit. And it's one of those deals, unless you're a very disciplined hitter, it looks like a fastball to hand, then just tails away from you. And if you don't stay on it and you're not disciplined with that pitch, you're not going to hit it. And so if he can stay consistent with that pitch, like he used it this last weekend, he's going to get a lot of guys out. And, the pitch ability for him is, throwing 97 helps a lot, but being able to really pitch helps a lot as well. So he's just really figured out how to pitch and control his pitches and can throw everything for strikes, and he's just going to pound the zone. And those are guys that are tough to hit. He's not going to walk a lot of people. He's going to make you earn it. And if you earn it and score 4 runs off of him and get a lot of hits, and so be it, But majority of the time, he's just going to be a guy that's really consistent, pound the zone, get you a lot of outs, and just eat up some innings when you need it.
Was there a pitcher you had on your team or maybe that you faced against that's kind of comparable to what Will McIntyre is? Because I think it's a unique guy when you talk about him not having the speed that maybe or velocity a lot of these other guys have, but he's just solid, consistent, throw strikes and everything. Was there a pitcher maybe that you can compare him to that you either played with or played against, or even a guy that Arkansas's had previously?
Yeah, I think probably he's probably very similar to Brandon Moore. I mean, Brandon and I were roommates, but Brandon was a guy that, you had Baird Ashton on Friday, Stanek on Saturday, Randall Fan on Sunday. But Brandon was the guy that the first sign of trouble, he was a guy that's going to come in, throw 88, 91 with the power sinker and eat up 4 to 7 innings for you if you need it. So very similar guy, just not afraid to pound the zone. And, very similar comparison. Arkansas boys. So, it's, he was a very, very similar player. That's, one of the first guys I think about when I see McIntyre pitch.
And going to the lineup itself, it's, you saw some guys that looked really good. You mentioned Hudson White. Mm-hmm. I know people were really excited about Aloy. It seemed like he struggled there in the beginning, but settled in a little bit more. But just from the lineup on the offensive side, it's hard. Again, 4 games, it's really tough to see. But did you at least, was it to your expectation? Did you expect a little more? What do you think of the overall lineup right now?
Yeah, it's hard to know what to expect that first weekend, especially when it's cold. You're just like, you may not see a lot, and you just, I, as a former player, know that like when it's cold like that, you're probably not going to see a lot of offensive explosion. And you as the fan, I get you may be frustrated because we didn't score 8 runs a game, 10 runs a game. So I think I'm more excited about this weekend when we face really good pitching, really good teams. I'm excited to see what the players look like. You know, I think Diggs is a guy that sticks out to me. He's going to have probably his exciting moments, but he's going to be that really boring, consistent hitter that's going to just spray the ball all over the yard, take his walks, get on base, and just, you know, death by 1,000 cuts with him. So, but those are the most important guys in your lineup. So, but yeah, Hudson White looked good. Aloy, I think, is going to be just fine. Probably a little different than California weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know, Helfrich, I think, is a guy, the freshman, I think he's going to be really, really good. So the pieces are all there, and when Stovall comes back and gets right in the lineup again, I think it's going to be a really fun time.
I want to ask you about Wilmsmeyer. You saw that play he made out there in outfield. SportsCenter #2 play, I believe, top 10. We were talking about this on the show, and I want, as a former player, the most hype play you can make as an outfielder. Is it that play, or my argument is just a frozen rope from outfield to home plate and tagging a guy out? Like, between those two, get the one that gets you more hyped, robbing a home run or the frozen rope to home?
Gosh, that's a tough one. It all depends on the situation, too.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
It's a well, at the same time, if it's a tie game and you rob a home run, that's pretty high. I mean, I personally loved a frozen rope. I love like just getting behind it,
just gunning it,
and just absolutely just throwing a guy out at third, home, whatever it was. That, to me, that was the best feeling. But I didn't get a lot of chances to rob a home run. But I remember probably the coolest play I ever experienced was Matt Vincent when he climbed the wall in left field. You may not remember that, but climbed the wall. He's halfway up, leaning over, and he caught it. It was the coolest play I've ever witnessed. So I don't know. It's a tough one. Me personally, I like throwing a guy out, but robbing home runs is pretty sweet too.
So you mentioned Vincent's play. What was the coolest play you ever had as a Razorback? Is there one that comes to mind? Defensively, at least.
I was pretty boring defensively. I just caught it and threw it. And
well, those are important things. You gotta catch it and
you got
to
do those to play and stay on the field. But I don't know. I think I had one. I can't remember who it was, but it was a year that. No, it was Benny's freshman year. That's what it was. It was 2014 where Benny was struggling, and they benched Benny. I know people probably don't remember that, but Benny didn't play. I know all those kids out there. If you get benched, it's not the end of the world. Okay, but I played center, and I had like 2 catches in one game where like it was just a blur, but I just running. It was like deep left center field. But those were probably the best catches that I made. I think Auburn, I had one frozen rope where I threw a guy out at third. That was probably one of my favorites. But again, I was a pretty boring outfielder. I didn't do anything too crazy. I wasn't blazing speed, so I just had to catch the ball and throw it. So
hey, listen, you did your job.
That's
man.
right.
The big constant is what
I just
you were.
tried to hit. That was all my goal was, just to hit. So,
so scoring runs is important too.
It is very important. You got to do that.
Yeah,
so.
And because I was trying to think of one of some of the plays that going back to that point and. To think about, some of the highlights and, you mentioned some of the plays that you were a part of too. It is amazing to me to see certain players get hyped over certain plays, if a pitcher, gets a big strikeout or whatnot. But I was like, what every player I feel like has a different thing. But in the outfield, this is really what I've been curious about just because, again, I don't know ball, but I act like I do sometimes. But the different positions out there, center field, left field, right field, how big of a difference is it to play those 3 positions? Because I think some people may just look at it as like, well, you're in the outfield. It's kind of the same. And I know it depends on the hitter. But, like, truly, how different is it between those 3 positions in playing them where it's not just like, oh, we'll insert somebody out there who plays right field and the left field and they'll do fine? Like, how big of a difference is it?
It's a huge difference because, people don't think about the strategy behind who you put in each position. Really, your left fielder and right fielder could essentially swap a lot of the times. The right fielder is where you normally put like your strongest arm. So, that's why I played right field, right?
Of course, yeah.
But no, that's usually where you put like one of your stronger arms because that throw to third and that throw to home but the throw to third is the longest throw. And you try to just have a little bit stronger arm in right field just to make the little bit longer throws. And then center field is going to be your more athletic, the guy that can just, he's going to get anything from gap to gap and call off the left and right fielder. And the left fielder is going to be a solid fielder that, essentially going to be interchangeable with the right fielder. So, but the other thing too on the corner, left and right field, the big difference is the spin, and people don't understand that. But any ball that's hit to if you're playing left field and it's hit to your right towards the line, the ball is going to spin towards the line. Like 99.9% of the time. I mean, it's almost impossible to get your hands so far inside of it that it spins the other way. But and then same on the right field line, it's going to go to your glove side, to your left side, towards the right field line. So the ways the ball comes off the bat, no matter if it's a righty lefty, it's completely different. So it's they're the same, but they're very, very different. But for me to go over to the left, if I was to go over to left field and play, it would be a little bit of a change and take me a minute. I need to get a couple days of fly balls but it's a very, very different position.
So let's talk about this weekend because Arlington is an awesome trip for those of you who may not have made it. And I mean, listen, you get to play in a major league ballpark. It's always a big deal. But going up against teams like Oregon State, I don't know if Arkansas has a history, I think, with Oregon State. They played each other once, I remember. But you got Oregon State, you got Oklahoma State, you got Michigan. So we'll start with the event itself. How does this type of event help and develop and get guys ready? Like, what does it do for a team and individual players to have an event like this early in the year and in a big ballpark against high quality teams that you don't normally face? Yeah, you
kind of just get to dip your toes in the water before SEC play. You get to see the SEC quality competition and just kind of mentally prepare yourself as a player just for what's coming down the road. At the same time, every team's coming in the same position. It's hard to, as a player, it's hard to think. You're thinking, I'm going to this tournament. There's going to be some really good teams there. But then you look at the field, and then everyone's like, well, we're going to this tournament, and Arkansas is going to be there. It's going to be tough, So it's one of those deals where Arkansas, we're kind of at that point where we're coming in, we've got the target on the back. Everyone's like, okay, Arkansas's there. If we can just find a way to beat them, like that's huge for us. So for Arkansas, it's going to be more or less, I think, Coach Van Horn's going to throw. You're going to see limited pitch counts. You're not going to see guys extend, but you're going to see different lineups. You're going to see, what guys can do it against the high quality competition, the high quality pitching, bullpen. So it's just a fun turn. You get to see where your team's at early on, compared to some of where they stack up against some of the other teams across the country, and especially Oregon State, who's number 7 in the country. So it'll be a good test. It'll be fun. And also looking at it from, the teams that Arkansas is going to be facing. Again, if you don't face Michigan, but for whatever reason, Michigan's actually been a pretty decent Big Ten team. And, Oregon State, and they have history. And Oklahoma State, seems like Arkansas and Oklahoma State play each other as often as SEC teams do. But just looking at the teams themselves, and then also the fact that you had a starting lineup or starting rotation that this past weekend. Do you think Dave is going to stick with that? I mean, I know you can't really get into his head, but do you think that that'll probably be some similar with Hagen Smith, then Tigert, and then throw in Molina? I know he had some struggles there, but you think it kind of stays the same this weekend? Yeah, I think it stays the same. I think Molina's got a consistent enough track record from Texas Tech that, it's not a one-and-done type deal. I think Molina's going to get quite a few. I would say going to get quite a few, at least 4 or 5 weekends, to really gauge and see, okay, is this going to be the guy? But yeah, Hagen, he's going to be the guy. Tigert, he's going to be the guy. So I think more or less it's going to be the bullpen that you may just see so many different changes. And, people don't realize you've got to throw in, your Gackles early on in the season in a situation where it's, 2-2 in the 7th inning, 2 outs, bases loaded. You know that McIntyre can come in and do it. You know that he's not afraid to come in and get that out. You know that Gage Wood could probably come in and do it, but you don't know if Gackle can come in and do it. So you've got to throw those guys into those situations where they haven't been in it before, and you've got to have them ready for SEC play. Because at the end of the day, if it's 2-2 in the 7th or 8th or 9th and, at Globe Life, not a big deal. But when it's week 9 of the SEC and you need to win the series, that's when it's a big deal. And you don't want that first time ever experiencing that for the kid to be that time. So, yeah. Speaking with Tyler Spoon, former Razorback, here on the John Neighbors Show, thanks to Bank of Fayetteville here in downtown Fayetteville. Tyler, what is it like? I know we talked about you played at Minute Maid. What is that like as a college baseball player? You play in great ballparks in the SEC. I mean, some of the best college baseball parks. You play in Omaha, play in so many different venues. But when you play in a major league ballpark, and especially if it's your first time there, like, what is that like running out onto that field for the first time? It's surreal. You step on the field and you're just like, oh my gosh, like big leaguers are playing on this exact field. Like, this is crazy. I mean, it's, you name it, you just start thinking of all the players that have, Altuve's on this field, whoever it is, and at the same time, probably the coolest experience for me was in 2013. I went to or 2014, whatever year it was, but played in Cape Cod. But
Oh, yeah.
one day, every year for Cape Cod, one day every year, every team gets to take BP at Fenway. And that was one for me where I walked on that field and I was just like, I was just frozen. You can't explain, you can't describe. As a baseball fanatic, as a freak, just understanding the history that was underneath my feet where I'm walking was just crazy. I mean, I couldn't even like put it into words how cool it was. And so it's really, really awesome for guys to get an opportunity to, play in a stadium like that and just, where the big leaguers play. And, Globe Life, it's where the World Series champs are, so where Corey Seager plays shortstop kind of stuff. So, it's really cool. Long story short, I know that was a lot, but it's an experience you can't really describe. It's awesome.
Yeah. And did you, as far as playing in it indoors though, like, is that really play much of a difference? Because baseball's outside, man. So when you play in a dome, like, I'm just always been curious, how is that different, or how is it different at all?
It's awesome, actually. It's because there's no wind factor, so there's no wind blowing in your face, but at the same time, there's no wind blowing out. But it's a true. It's a true like playing surface, playing field. I guess it's where you get a ball really well. There's no wind blowing in to knock it down. It's going to go over the fence. But at the same time, it's the pitchers, same thing. There's no elements that are going to, I guess, change a couple things here and there about the game or the ball and how it flies, all that stuff. So it's fun. It's a controlled environment, 70 degrees. It's going to be perfect. But the infield is turf. It's all amazing. So it's just a true, unbelievable, great playing surface, great elements. So there's not going to be. It's fun to play and stuff like that.
Well, because one of the things that I look at with other sports, other major sports and college sports, for instance, like college football, you have times where you play in NFL stadiums often, and a lot of times it's in postseason play. You think about in college basketball, we were even discussing it last night on our live stream that Final Fours now, they don't even play them in basketball arenas. It's football stadiums, and they just put the courts on there. So for more tickets and everything, but love Omaha and everything, but I wonder if there will ever be a time where they'll maybe look to have some sort of postseason in MLB stadiums. I don't know if that'll come. I don't know if it'll stay the way that it is, because there's nothing against Omaha or anything, but I just always felt like it's so interesting that the arguably the best ballpark that this Razorback baseball team is going to play in is going to be in the beginning of the year, even if they went on to win a national championship. Yeah.
No, it's so hard to say. You're going to go one way or the other. I personally love the idea of like Omaha. Yeah. You make it to Omaha. That's what you do. You try to make it to Omaha and you got a chance. And, if you switch to a format like the NCAA tournament basketball wise, where it's, hey, you may be in Indianapolis this year, you may be in Atlanta, you may be, wherever it is. It's, it makes it, it's still going to be special, but I think there's just something about fighting through regionals, fighting through super regionals, and your goal is to make it to Omaha. Like you're not trying to make it to TBD location. It's, the destination, where you're trying to go. You know that you want to end the year in Omaha. You want to be the last team standing in Omaha. So there's just something about, TD Ameritrade and being in Omaha that's just, it's special. So me personally, I hope they don't get rid of it, but at the same time, I could see where it would be cool if they did, do some major league parks and all that stuff.
Well, it sounds like you have Hogs, man. It's like,
it's true.
It's already there.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to change it or anything. Exactly. Just keep it the way it is. But I'd be fine if it stayed in Omaha. But just knowing how like sports is changing and how it's always wild to see how that plays out. I did want to ask you this. I meant to ask you last week, but since we're kind of discussing it, 10 SEC series, is kind of what the schedule is. We got Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference. And I know that they've kind of alluded to how they're going to have a schedule set up. I believe you're going to have 2 permanent opponents each year. I think Arkansas's is Ole Miss and Missouri. I believe that's the case. I'll have to double check. But like, do you think that first off, 10 SEC series, like if they expanded that'd be bad if they went to 11 or 12? But also, how do you feel like maybe scheduling wise, you'd like to see it just as a former player, just as far as these new teams coming in, 16 teams in the conference? How could you really play that out?
It's gonna be interesting. I think as a former player, I think 10 is perfect because, I don't know. More SEC series, 10 is already a gauntlet. It's just,
it is.
You run through, you play Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and then you play, A&M 3 weekends in a row, and then you're like, okay, that was tough. And then you look up, it's like, well, now we got LSU this next weekend. It's like, there's just no break, and then you hope and a lot of times what DVH likes to do is play his midweek series early on / middle of the year, and then towards the end, take away those midweek games so the guys are getting a little bit more rest, just because by week 7, 6, 6, 7 in the SEC, you're gassed and you need some rest. So I think 10 is a good number, but there's no weak link on the schedule. I mean, it's just so regardless, you're just going to add. If you add 11, it's going to be 11 really hard weekends.
Yeah.
So it's just a gauntlet. So I don't think they will. They might, but the scheduling. I mean, OU and Texas are just 2 quality opponents to add to the mix. It's going to be fun. I mean, it's going to be good baseball, fun baseball to watch. But as a player, it's like, golly, that's a gauntlet to even think about going through. So
the SEC is already pretty tough enough as it is. To add that in there. And I don't even know if you even care about this, but the divisions are going away.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like the divisions, just personally, you got to a point where almost they're pointless in all sports. Like in football, they're getting rid of them.
Yeah.
In basketball, they've been done with divisions for over a decade, and I think it's been fine. But divisions, SEC West and East, do you care about that, or do you think it's going to be all right with, hey, just take the top 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way down, and from the entire conference, all 16 teams?
Yeah, usually, I mean, I don't mind it just because, it's like in the West, you're like, all right, let's beat LSU, and you got a chance to win the SEC. That's it. And at the end of the day, you're from the East, you've got Georgia, you got Vandy, you got Florida. Georgia could be in that mix, but it's usually right now. Lately, it's been Arkansas, LSU, Florida, and Vandy. So those are the 4 teams that usually are in the mix, and usually if you just beat the for us, it was if you beat LSU, you got a chance to win the whole thing, win the whole SEC. So at the end of the day, you just try to win. If you can win 7 SEC series in a year, it's really good. I don't think people realize how hard it is to win 7. So you win 7, you're at least winning 14 games, and as long as you don't get swept the others, you're going to at least win 15, 18 games in the SEC, which is really good. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the strategy, I guess, changes. I mean, you're going to have to try to win every weekend, which obviously you do. But, it'll be, with Texas in the mix, it'll be fun. So
Try to tell people about when Arkansas won 10 SEC series. The fact that is the most absurd thing that, what was it, one other time in history that's happened?
Yeah, I don't think you may never see that again from, let alone an Arkansas team, but any other team. That was a feat that it may not ever see again. It was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Because, even last year, losing to, I think they got swept by Georgia on the road, and Georgia wasn't a great team. But
exactly.
Sometimes it's just, it's baseball, man. Yeah. You just never know how it's going to play out. But I think that the way that the schedule is set up, especially this year for Arkansas, is really good as far as home games and road games. So here's my question to you, Tyler. You get to guarantee 1 SEC series victory this year. Just guarantee 1. Which team would you like it to be against?
Would I like it to be against?
Yeah, like that, where if it happened, how about this? William throwing a sweep. We'll say one sweep guaranteed against 1 SEC opponent this year for Arkansas. Who would you want it to be against?
Gosh, it got to be LSU for me.
That's what I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same.
Do we play Tennessee this year?
No, sadly not. It's unfortunate.
It's got to be LSU. I remember 2013 or whenever it was, 2013, it was, we were top 10. LSU was top 10. They came here, and it was, Bregman and Nola and all those guys, and it was, they won Friday. Nola threw a gem, and then Stanek shut him out Saturday, and it was like Game 3 on Sunday, and it was a big deal. But just remember them getting that final out, and they were all fired up. I was like, gosh, this is the worst. So, because that series is probably going to end up being the winner of the SEC West. So I think if a sweep over LSU would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I think LSU is always going to be everyone's answer. And because winning the College World Series last year, Paul Skeens isn't there anymore, but still, it's still LSU. Yeah. Still got a good thing going down there. So I know it would be. It'd be. I think most fans would actually. That'd be maybe a good question to start asking people. Like, what would it be? But I think LSU would be the overwhelming one.
You would think LSU would be the number one. So
because you still have Florida this year that you're going to be playing.
Yeah,
Florida's that's a home
weird.
One.
Man, Florida's weird. You just never know what you're going to get from Florida. You're going to get a team that's going to be. They're going to win the national championship, or they're going to look like they won't make the tournament. But O'Sullivan always finds a way right at the right time to, figure it out and next thing you know, they're in postseason. You look up there in Omaha, and next thing you know, they're in the championship game. It's like, what in the world? So he always knows the right buttons to press. So,
well, is it just me? Since you're talking about Florida, it seems like Dave really likes and respects Florida and O'Sullivan. I mean, I think he does for almost coaches, but it seems like there's an extra special like connection, respect there for O'Sullivan and what he does at Florida with Dave Van Horn.
Yeah, no, I know Coach Van Horn really likes just how O'Sullivan runs his program, and it's probably very similar to how Van Horn runs his. It's like no nonsense. We're here to work. We're here to win kind of deal, and I think they just have a good relationship in general. I think they go out to dinner when they play each other that weekend or whatever it is. But I think that's just a good business / relationship / friendship, and they've just come to really respect each other and love how they each go about the business and how they each handle their teams. And so, yeah, there's definitely mutual respect there, and I think they're kind of mirror images when it comes to programs, how they operate.
So does it bother you just personally, and you can tell us because, there's only millions of people watching, when you see programs that kind of are a little nonsensical? Like, is it something that you're just like, you root against them, or you're just kind of like, or do you maybe say, hey, everybody's different, everybody goes about their own way? Just how do you feel about it personally when you see programs like that?
It just depends on how out of line they are. If you pimp a home run, like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Like, but if you're
flipping
there,
off the outfielder as you're rounding the bases,
or if you're like sitting there and it's taking you 10 seconds, you're watching it for 10 seconds, and then you throw your bat. It's like, okay, I got a problem with that. But if you want to watch it, admire your work for a little bit, I was a hitter. Like, I get it. Like, hey, I finally got one, 97 miles an hour, and I absolutely just pumped that one. I'm going to sit there and watch it for a second. I got no problem with that. But it's the excessive just going over the top, like, all right, dude, like, is this your first home run you've ever hit kind of deal? Like, let's go. Come on. So, over the top, man, that kind of bothers me a little bit. But if it's just a little bit of like, hey, I'm going to admire my work, I don't care. So it's just,
what about dugout celebrations? Because they kind of scaled those back. It seemed like at least they put a rule into that.
Yeah, those dugouts are always chirpy. That was a good thing about being in the outfield, though, is like you didn't hear it much.
Oh, really?
You were always just in the outfield. You didn't hear much. You just heard the outfield yelling at you or whoever it was. So dugouts are definitely. And obviously the guys would come in and be like, these, stuff I can't say. These guys, I'm gonna, they won't shut up and leave me alone, and they know my sister's name, my girlfriend's. So it's just, they're ruthless. But
who was the chirpiest dugout that you remember?
Ole Miss had to be
really
chirpiest outfield, chirpiest dugout. I mean, they just, what you think of Ole Miss is what they were like, probably. So
how do you? I mean, I don't know. Those are things where I've had friends tell me about that are baseball guys. It's like, baseball can police itself a little bit sometimes where you get it. But because, fans, if they're watching on TV, they don't, they don't know what's being said or anything like that. So whenever things get a little bit dicey, it's like what instigated this, what happened. But I think everyone's not really surprised that Ole Miss was the chirpiest, especially during that time too. So
I think, and it's I personally love Bianco. I love the way he's former military man. I mean, like, really good, well-respected dude, and it's just the Ole Miss way. That's just how it is, And so I don't think that's any kind of a shock or anything. Yeah. So,
well, did Dave? How did Dave handle if you guys chirped? Does he allow you guys to chirp at all? Or
no,
maybe a little bit if they start chirping a bit.
He was really big on like, hey, we talk on the field. We try not to. Don't run your mouth, like it's going to come back to get you kind of deal. He's big on like, hey, you put your head down, you work, and when you hit a 2-run home run in the 8th, then that's all the talking you need kind of deal. So, he was all about, hey, take care of business, and that'll talk for you.
Yeah.
So,
I also feel like he's not that he's changed. Yeah. But, I've told you, I think this before, that I've talked to former players that friends of mine like, my guy Trent, and Trent Daniel and Fick and all that, just how he was very like, hey, man, certain haircut, facial hair and everything. I'm not saying he's gotten lax, but have you maybe seen him kind of, Dave, with some of the things like that kind of?
Yeah, he definitely has. The one thing that sticks out to me is the white cleats. I love them. And we had to wear black. We always had to wear the black cleats.
Really? Why was he had a problem with those?
He just wanted everybody to have the same color cleats. And so I think he, got relaxed, not got relaxed, but like loosened up on that thought of the cleats. And, the white cleats are just clean. I mean, they are with the red and the hog. I'm like, man, that would have been nice to have. So, but yeah, he's definitely, just as the game's gone on, he's definitely loosened up on certain things. You can see it, but he's still very, very professional, and it's like, hey, we're here to work, we're here to win, you know. So that's never going to change. That's who he is in his core.
Yeah, I've always wondered how did he get ejected ever when you were at?
Oh yeah. I mean, he did. I mean, I couldn't recall the game or anything, but yeah, he definitely has gotten ejected
is that?
before.
I feel like it's one of those things to where just being honest, it scares me because I'm like. It's almost like seeing your dad where he's getting mad at somebody else and like yelling at him. And then as a little kid, you're like scared because you're like, it's not at me. But I feel like it is. Like, is it kind of like almost like, like how does that feel when you ever see Dave, like not only get ejected, but start just ripping the umpires and everything? Is it kind of like oh geez, what is happening? Like kind of scary moment a little bit?
Yeah. Usually when he gets involved that much, and there's been a lot of stuff that's happened, and whether it's the umpires chirping back at him or it's just been an absolutely terrible game. And, usually everybody's kind of behind him at that point where he's like, he's not going to say anything unless it's like absolutely warranted. So everybody else is like, oh yeah, get him, like, go get him, Skip, like that, let him have it. So, but there's also some times where managers will get tossed because we're down 8-0. It's like, get me out of here. I can't watch this anymore. So, that's where you see the clips where it's like, hey, I need you to throw me out of here, and then he starts yelling at the umpire. But yeah, it was usually a deal. He's really good about and a lot of it too is like just getting the umpire to tighten his zone, like whether if it's a big zone or a small zone, and especially if it's small zone, you get your guy working on the mound and he's missing by an inch, and it's like, come on, man, like he's working his tail off. You give him an inch, like that's all. Like he's hitting spot after spot, pitching a great game, and so sometimes it's just to like get a point across, like, hey, like figure it out, kind of deal, and so it works a lot of times. And, when he does it, usually works. So
well, I've one of my favorite clips I play in my show, and it was I don't know why he was mic'd up. He was mic'd up for some reason. It was on ESPN, and they had it on SportsCenter, and there was a call, and he ran down to the first base umpire, and the clip is just simply, it's very short, but you missed it. You missed it. Come on, you missed it. Just tell me you missed it. Like he just says that, and it's so funny to me because like hearing him and just knowing that that's kind of like what he would say to an umpire. You always wonder if you're not there at the game, what is he saying? But sometimes just like, hey, you missed it. It's okay. Tell me. Just tell me you missed it. Just tell me you missed it.
And it's sad because you don't get that anymore because of the replay. So the replay now, it's like, if you miss it, it's like, hey, you missed it. We're gonna show you that you missed it, kind of deal. But yeah, back in the day, it was like, hey, I'm going to tell you that you missed this. You were wrong, and I'm going to let you know about it. So, yeah, it's a little different with that replay.
So how do you think we'll wrap up here in just a little bit, but how do you feel like this weekend for Arkansas? You see, it's not like you do an advanced scouting report on some of these teams, but as far as what is it just like, hey, go 2-1 in some capacity, it's a success, just how you feel like this can be a successful weekend for Arkansas? Yeah,
go 2-1. Go 2-1. And you play a lot of players, and you see positive things from certain players you weren't sure about. That's what you want out of this weekend. You want to see, one, your team compete against the best competition, some of the best competition, but two, you just want to see the guys that can and can't do it. So you want to win, at least win 2, win the weekend. You just treat it like a series, win 2 out of 3. I think if you win 2 out of 3 and you get guys some good experience, but against good teams, that's a good weekend.
Before we let you get out of here, Tyler, I know Bank of Fayetteville is the official sponsor of this segment we're doing each and every week. So just let everybody know, when they walk into Bank of Fayetteville and they see Tyler Spoon sitting in there, what are the folks that are going to get out of Bank of Fayetteville, and when they walk in there and see you and see the great staff that they have over there?
We're going to see a nice new floor we just got.
Heck yeah.
So it's nice. We just refinished all the wood floors. But no, the bank's been around since 1987. John Lewis started the bank. It's been in the community for a long time, and we're a community bank. We're not a giant bank. We're not the Chases and the Bank of America. We're here to serve the community. We want to be involved in the community, help the people of Fayetteville, Springdale, Bentonville, Rogers, whoever it is. We're here for Northwest Arkansas. So it's a good bank, good local community bank, and great people. And I've can't stress that enough, how good of people there are at the bank, and we all work together. It's a real team type deal. But we want to take care of everybody in Northwest Arkansas, of their banking needs, and any loan situation, whatever it is, we want to help you out. So we're here to serve this community. We really want to do that and make sure we just take care of these people of Northwest Arkansas.
All right, that's Tyler Spoon, former Razorback. Thanks to Bank of Fayetteville. Join us each and every week. Appreciate it, Tyler. Have a great weekend. Hopefully it's a successful baseball week, and we can talk about Hogs taking care of business in Arlington next week.
Yeah, let's at least win 2 and maybe beat Oregon State. That'd be nice.
It's almost like really would feel good to beat that team.
Yeah.
I almost feel bad for them because they're like those players are probably going to feel this heat and anger, and they're not going to know why. Like they're just not going to know why. But Hog fans know. Hog fans know. So yeah, it'll be great. So yeah, but enjoy the weekend, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, John.